Welcome to Naughty Relationship Stories, where passion, drama, secrets, and unexpected twists come alive. My name is Christine and I'm 28. I have been married for 7 long years. 2 beautiful kids. One's 4, the other just 5 months. My husband and I look like the perfect little family. Photos on the wall, matching Christmas pajamas, polite smiles at dinner. But behind closed doors I'm starving. Not for food, for passion, intimacy, connection, for touch. Our sex life is basically dead. Once a week if I'm lucky. But even then it's more like a chore than a moment. No passion, no heat. Just obligation. It's always on his terms, always the same position, and usually over in under a minute. No foreplay. No kissing. Just him getting what he needs. And leaving me in a mess of silence and frustration. The last time it happened he actually said, "Be lucky I came," when I didn't hide the look of disappointment on my face. I didn't respond. What was there to say? I didn't cry. Not anymore. I'm past tears. I've begged, pleaded, tried to spice things up. Hell, I even stopped trying to initiate because every time I did, it ended in rejection. I just lay there afterward, eyes open, body aching not just with physical dissatisfaction but emotional loneliness. I don't watch porn because it doesn't work for me. I don't even touch myself anymore. It just feels pointless. So I suffer quietly. But then something happened. Or rather, someone happened. My husband's best friend, Marcus, came into town on a business assignment. He needed a place to stay for a few nights. My husband offered the guest room without hesitation. They've been close since college. Marcus and I, we have history. Years ago, before I was married, before things were serious with my husband, Marcus and I had one reckless, unforgettable night. It was during a group game night back when we were all just friends. One too many drinks, laughter that turned into lingering touches, and eventually, we found ourselves tangled in each other under dim lights and promises. It wasn't just lust, it was connection, chemistry, and raw, unfiltered heat. But we never spoke of it again. He respected that I chose his best friend. I buried the memory like a guilty secret. Until now. The moment he stepped through our door, the air shifted. He looked good. Older, confident, with that same smirk that once made me weak in the knees. And when our eyes met, I could tell. He remembered too. He hugged me hello, his arms wrapping around me just a moment too long. Not inappropriate, not exactly, but just enough to stir something inside me that had been asleep for far too long. And that night, after the kids were asleep and my husband passed out in front of the TV, Marcus and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen. Felt all too familiar. We talked, caught up about his life, and shared a joke or two. But underneath the conversation, the tension was thick, buzzing between us like static. At one point, he leaned in close to grab something from the counter behind me, and his breath grazed my ear. I shivered. He noticed. "You remember that night?" he asked, his voice low, his eyes locked on mine. I didn't answer with words. I just looked at him, long and hard. And that was enough. Because I remembered everything. The way he undressed me like I was a secret he couldn't wait to discover. The way he worshipped every inch of my body. The way I came undone in his arms more than once. And now, here he was again. In my house. Sleeping just down the hall. I went to bed that night soaked in guilt, and something far more dangerous. Desire. And I knew deep down that if he looked at me like that again, I might not say no. I tried to sleep that night, but my body wouldn't rest. I laid next to my husband, his back turned to me, snoring lightly, while every nerve in my body felt like it was buzzing. Like Marcus had reached inside me and flipped a switch I'd forgotten existed. That memory, our memory, played on a loop in my mind. The way he touched me like I was something he wanted to savor. How his lips explored me with intention. How he didn't rush. How he listened to my body. I hadn't been touched like that in years. So when the house finally quieted the next night and I saw Marcus in the kitchen again, shirtless this time, sweatpants riding low, muscles carved like he knew I was watching, I knew I was playing with fire. But I didn't care. I wanted the burn. He poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. I shook my head, keeping my voice steady. "No. You." He smirked. "Same. Must be something in this house." I leaned on the island across from him, arms crossed, heart racing. "You've been quiet. I thought maybe you forgot about that night." Marcus's eyes darkened just slightly. I've never forgotten. The silence between us pulsed with something dangerous. And in that moment I forgot everything else. My kids, my vows, my guilt. I remembered only how alive I used to feel. He took a slow step forward. You looked unhappy last night. I looked away. I was just tired. No, he said, voice low. You were frustrated, disappointed. You always had a face when you weren't satisfied. I remember. I felt exposed, like he'd undressed my soul with that one line. Don't, I whispered, suddenly ashamed. But also not. Don't what? He stepped closer. Don't see you. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Instead, I stood frozen while he closed the distance between us. His hand brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, fingers grazing my cheek. And just like that, I was 23 again, pressed against his chest on that long-forgotten night, letting him take me places my husband never could. I shouldn't, I whispered. You already have, he said. And he was right. My body was already betraying me. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His lips touched mine, soft and cautious. Testing. Then deeper. Hungrier. I melted into him, hands gripping his chest, breath catching as his hand slid to my lower back and pulled me in tighter. We broke apart for just a second, breathing hard, eyes wild. You're married, he said, but even he sounded unsure now. I know, I whispered. I know. But the next moment shattered every boundary. I kissed him back. Hard. There was nothing polite about it now. It was fire and need and years of loneliness clawing its way to the surface. He lifted me onto the kitchen counter like I weighed nothing. I wrapped my legs around him, and in that moment I didn't feel like a mom. I didn't feel like a wife. I felt like a woman again. Wanted, craved, alive. What happened next I'll never forget. And I'll never be able to undo. His lips crushed into mine as if we'd been holding this kiss back for years. And maybe we had. The second I wrapped my legs around him and pulled him closer, something inside both of us snapped. There was no going back. No pretending anymore. He gripped my thighs, lifting me onto the counter like it was the most natural thing in the world. And I welcomed it, welcomed him. The cool granite pressed against my skin, but all I could feel was heat. The kind of heat I forgot I could feel. His hands slid beneath the hem of my shirt, exploring skin that hadn't been touched like this in what felt like forever. Every kiss down my jaw, every graze of his fingers made my breath catch. I clutched his shoulders, his back, anywhere I could hold on, like I was drowning and he was the only thing keeping me afloat. This wasn't slow or hesitant. This was hunger. Years of it. Starvation finally being fed. Clothes came off piece by piece, our hands shaking, breaths ragged. And when we finally connected fully, I nearly cried. Not from guilt, not from shame, but from the overwhelming feeling of finally being wanted. He moved like he remembered everything about me. Every sound I made, every place I liked to be touched. Like his body was built to fit mine. And mine responded like it had just remembered how to feel again. No sideways routine. No rushed finish. No, be lucky I came. This was real. I lost track of how many times I unraveled under him, and how he never once let me feel alone in it. He kissed me through it, held me tighter every time I gasped, and whispered my name like it was a song he never forgot the lyrics to. When it was over, we didn't speak. Just stayed there. Our foreheads pressed together. Breathing, sweaty, tangled. I just committed the one thing I swore I never would. And yet I didn't feel dirty. I felt seen. But then the guilt crept in, like a slow, creeping shadow. I slid off the counter, suddenly too aware of the silence in the house. My husband was asleep just 2 rooms away. My children down the hall. What had I just done? Marcus stepped toward me, his fingers brushing my cheek. I'm not sorry, he said quietly. And I hated that I wasn't either. I gathered my clothes in silence, slipping out of the kitchen without another word. My heart was pounding. My legs were shaking. And for the first time in years, I felt alive, but also terrified, because now I knew what I'd been missing. And I wasn't sure I could go back to pretending anymore. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making breakfast like nothing happened. Waffles for the kids, coffee for my husband. But inside I was wrecked. Every time Marcus walked past me, I felt my skin heat up like I was still on that counter. I avoided his eyes. I couldn't risk my husband seeing even a flicker of what had passed between us. But it was there. In the silence. In the tension. In the way our fingers accidentally brushed when I passed him a mug. He kept his distance that day. Didn't flirt. Didn't touch me. Just sat on the couch watching TV with the same man whose wife he'd been inside less than 12 hours earlier. I wanted to hate him for how calm he was. But mostly I hated myself for how badly I wanted it to happen again. That night, my husband barely acknowledged me in bed. He just kissed me on the forehead and rolled over. I laid there in the dark, eyes wide open, every part of me aching. And just like the night before, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway, and then a gentle knock on my bedroom door. My heart stopped. I crept out, careful not to wake the baby in the bassinet. My hands shook as I eased the door shut behind me and stepped into the hallway face to face with Marcus again. No words this time, just a look. And then his hand slid into mine, and instead of pulling me toward the guest room, he pressed me up against the wall. Right there, in the hallway, where one creak of the floorboards, one cough from my husband, one hungry baby cry could give us away. His lips crashed into mine and I melted into him. The thrill of being caught made everything burn hotter. My breath hitched as he lifted my leg, guiding me against the wall, his body perfectly aligned with mine. It was fast but desperate, quiet but fiery. I bit my lip to keep from moaning, my fingers tangled in his shirt, nails digging into his back. He moved inside me with controlled urgency, one hand braced against the wall, the other holding me steady by the waist. The way he looked at me, wild, locked in, made me forget who I was, where we were. I came undone in his arms with my forehead buried in his neck, fighting back every sound, every shiver. He followed moments later, his jaw clenched, holding his breath as we both collapsed into the silence, hearts thundering. We froze for a second, both of us listening. No footsteps, no crying baby, no voice calling out. Just the sound of our breathing in the dark hallway, bodies still pressed tight together. "This can't happen again," I whispered, still trembling. "I know," he murmured, forehead against mine. But neither of us moved, because the danger had only made it harder to stop. I swore it was the last time. Swore I'd pull away before I got in too deep. But the problem was I was already drowning and I didn't want to come up for air. Marcus had only been staying with us for 5 days, but in those 5 days, I'd felt more alive than I had in the last 5 years. Each stolen glance across the dinner table, each innocent brush of his fingers when no one was looking, each time I walked past him in nothing but a t-shirt and no bra, knowing damn well he was watching. It was dangerous and addictive, but the cracks were starting to show. One morning, while I was folding laundry, my husband walked in with a strange look on his face. He held up my phone, screen glowing. "Why is Marcus texting you this late?" he asked casually. Too casually. My stomach flipped. I'd forgotten to mute the thread. I forced a laugh. He just asked where the cereal was. Said he didn't want to wake anyone up. He nodded slowly, still watching me. The ear went tight. I looked away, pretending to fuss with a baby onesie. "Don't be weird. He's your best friend." "Yeah," he said. "He is." But the way he looked at me, like maybe something inside him had shifted. That night I was paranoid. I kept checking the doors, the locks, my phone. I didn't go to Marcus. I couldn't. Not with that look still burned into my memory. But the next night, I cracked. We didn't even make it to the guest room. We didn't even try to be cautious. He pulled me into the laundry room this time, spun me around and kissed me breathless, right there against the dryer. My hands clawed at his back, my teeth grazed his neck. He slid into me from behind with one hand gripping my mouth and the other between my thighs. I was silent but not still. My body rocked into him like I was trying to erase every moment I'd ever felt invisible. It was fast, messy, raw. The thump of the dryer beneath us. The wet sounds of our bodies. The thrill of knowing the man I married was asleep just down the hallway. When it was over, I didn't cry. I didn't even speak. I just leaned against the machine, half-dressed and breathless, as Marcus kissed my shoulder and slipped back into the dark. But that night, when I crawled back into my marital bed, something inside me cracked too. Because I didn't feel guilt anymore. I felt powerful, wanted, fed, and seen. And that scared me more than anything. Because the deeper I fell into this, the harder it would be to climb out. The morning Marcus was set to leave felt heavy with unsaid things. The sky was still pale, and the house was quiet except for the sound of the baby's soft breathing through the monitor. I was barely functioning, sipping lukewarm coffee when my husband came down in his running shoes. "I'm heading out for a quick jog before he leaves," he said, stretching. "Hey babe, can you check on Marcus? See if he needs anything before he hits the road." My heart skipped. "Yeah, sure," I said, trying not to show how fast my pulse was racing. The moment the front door clicked shut behind him, I walked, too quickly, toward the guest room. My fingers trembled as I knocked, then slowly pushed the door open. Marcus was shirtless, finishing up his packing. He looked up, our eyes locking in that charged way they always did now. I stepped in and quietly shut the door behind me. "He's gone for a run," I whispered. His jaw tightened. "Come here." I was in his arms before the words had even left his mouth. There was no time for games. No time for teasing. He lifted me up onto the edge of the guest bed, my legs wrapping around his waist. His mouth was everywhere, hungry, desperate, memorizing me like he'd never see me again. My fingers dug into his back as he slid into me, and I had to bite down on my own wrist to keep from moaning. It was fast. It was frantic. It was unforgettable. His hands were all over me like he was trying to burn every inch of my skin into his memory. We moved in sync, our breath heavy, bodies locked together like magnets refusing to pull apart. I clenched around him, my head falling back against the pillows, and just as he groaned into my neck, he finished, collapsing against me for a moment, chest heaving. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. There was a knock at the front door. I bolted upright in panic. Marcus pressed a calming hand on my thigh. "Relax. That's just him coming back." He helped me up, straightened his shirt, and I quickly pulled myself together. Within minutes, he was at the front door, shaking hands with my husband like nothing had happened at all. "You good, bro?" my husband asked, handing him a bottle of water. "All good, man. Appreciate you letting me crash here. I owe you one." He left with a smile and a hug. I stood behind them both, heart thumping, wearing clean clothes but feeling completely undone. Later that afternoon, as I was nursing the baby on the couch, my husband's phone buzzed. He answered on speaker without looking. "Yo, Marcus. What's up, man?" "Hey, bro. Just landed. Listen, I wanted to call and say thanks again. You guys really looked out for me," Marcus said, voice relaxed. "So, I pulled a few strings with my company. There's a team retreat coming up in Miami next month. All expenses paid. Spouses invited. Thought it'd be a nice little getaway for you and your wife. On me." My husband laughed. "What? For real? Bro, you don't have to do that." "I insist. It's the least I can do." He looked over at me and mouthed, "Miami, baby?" I smiled, nodded and acted surprised. But inside, I was already burning. Because Marcus wasn't done with me. And neither was I. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more spicy stories.